Give to everyone who asks of you, and whoever takes away what is yours, do not demand it back. Luke 6:30. In this teaching, Jesus presents two sides of a proverbial coin, and at first glance, one side seems more difficult to accept than the other. The Lord begins by commanding that we give to everyone who asks of us, but then adds, and whoever takes away what is yours, do not demand it back. The original Greek reads just as plainly as the English translation. In the first part of this teaching, Jesus is clearly calling us to extend our open hands freely to anyone and everyone in need. Although this is deeply challenging in itself, the second part can be even more challenging. In addition to giving freely to those in need, Jesus commands that when someone takes something from us against our will, we are not to demand it back. As with many or most of Christ's teachings, this one is completely antithetical to the way we think in the modern world, especially in the West, where we have learned to value ourselves and others based on our material possessions. While we should absolutely wrestle with this teaching at face value, there is more to it than first meets the eye, and we can gain greater insight by seeking the connection between the first and last parts of this verse. Both parts of this teaching are ultimately about detachment from possessions and freedom from the bondage of materialism. Jesus is quite clear throughout his teachings on how we are to view, earn, and dispose of wealth. According to our Lord, material wealth is something to be used for the glory of God by easing the suffering of the poor and investing in good works pleasing to the Lord. It is to be viewed as temporary and fleeting, unworthy to be compared to the eternal riches of heaven. And it is to be earned through honest labor or ethical business tempered with the fear of the Lord. In order to give freely to all who ask, we must have a complete detachment from our worldly possessions, and the key to detachment is an absolute trust in God. If we do not trust that God will provide for us, then how can we freely let something go that we might need in the future? If we trust in God completely, on the other hand, it makes perfect sense to share the abundance that He has blessed us with, because we know that He will continue to provide for our needs tomorrow. This perspective can help us to understand the second part of this teaching as well. If we do not trust in God, then we perceive a need to save things, to store things up and hoard our wealth, to take care of ourselves and our families. If we do not see people the way God sees them, with unconditional love, then we will link our personal worth to the value of our assets, rather than the undefiled dignity that comes from being made in God's own image. In this case, if someone takes something from us, then we must demand it back, using any means necessary to re-secure what is ours. However, if we trust in God completely, with full faith in His provision for tomorrow, then our identities, security, and pride are not threatened by theft or usury. With full trust in God, we know that A, the Lord will replace all that is taken from us, and B, the Lord will enact His own justice to right the wrongs done to us. As followers of Christ, we have a duty to forgive those who rob us and continue showing them the love of Christ. We have a duty to care for suffering people in any way that we can. As Christians, we are given an abundance of wealth for the purpose of sharing it, just as Christ did during His earthly ministry. These are integral parts of the mission and calling that each of us shares, and materialism only stands in the way of our obedience to Jesus and the conforming of our hearts and minds to His own. Now, before we close with the words of our Lord, I'd like to share a perspective on what actually constitutes material wealth. For anyone who struggles with sharing their wealth because you consider that you are not wealthy, consider this. If you sleep on a bed each night, in a room with 4 walls and a roof, if you drive a car to a full or part-time job, if you own a refrigerator and shop at a grocery store, if you take showers and use indoor toilets, if you own a stovetop, an oven, and a microwave, if you watch cable TV and have internet service, if your children's education is provided by the state or by your own income, if these things apply to you, then congratulations, you are among the wealthiest 2% of people in the entire world. We should own up to the vastness of our personal wealth in the context of global human history, then reread this teaching of Christ with a full knowledge of the abundance we already possess. In the words of our Lord from Matthew 6:19 through 21, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." May God bless you.